Islam, Islam. Welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. This is the Moorish Sense Channel. I'm your host, Brother Jordan Ill. Tuning in this evening, coming to you this evening. The time is approximately about 8:50 here on the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time. And this segment right here is going to be a little different. As you can see, don't have Fez on today. And then yet again, I still do have it on, and it is right here with me as well. But first, I want to rise and give praises to Allah. I want to give honors to His holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I want to give honors to all past and present leaders of the Moorish Science Temple of America, those that we know and those that we don't know. I also want to extend honors to our leadership, um, our leadership in Baltimore, Maryland, our officials, and I also want to extend honors to everybody in Temple number 13, 1055 North Milton Avenue, as well as 2900 Pressman Street as well. And extend the honors to all my brothers and sisters who are tuned in, who will see this recording because this is not a live video, as you can see, but this is, in fact, a recording because I wanted to kind of take my time with this. And I just wanted to just give you all a list of some of the books and records that I have in my repertoire. I have my arsenal. I have quite a few books. I've amassed a lot of books over, let's say, maybe the last 15 years or more. But I've really started amassing a lot of them over the last 11 years. Um, tonight and today is a special day for me. Today is actually February the 1st, 2026. And February the 1st, 2015 is when I united in the Moorish movement, also known as the Moorish Science Temple of America, and proclaim my nationality. And to proclaim my nationality wasn't a one time or one offer, but it's something. It's not even something. It is a mission that I've been dedicated to and for the past 11 years, and I plan on and intend to continue to praise Allah all the days of my life, as long as Allah puts breath in this form and allows this spirit to actuate and direct this physical form in this soul, which is housed in this form as well, along with the spirit. Um, so with that being said, uh, we created a post. I actually created a post. I'm gonna put it on YouTube maybe about a week ago in regards to some books I said that I would give our viewing and listening audience and anyone who may preview this segment 7 books that speak have I personally like 7 books that I personally, um, I'm not going to say endorse, but I think that are very important, especially, given the time that we're currently living in. Some of the things that have not only transpired over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks and months, years, etc., but it's always good to step outside of your comfort zone or things you may be accustomed to reading, things you may be accustomed to, things that aren't really palatable to your liking, so to speak. And some of the records that I'm going to display and expound upon this evening are records that I think should be of interest to not only Asiatics, but individuals in general, the all of humanity. I think that these records are records that can possibly guide you, give you a little bit of insight into different aspects of the world that we live in. Because far too often, and I'm talking specifically those of us who live in the United States of America, or what we call the West, the Western world, we live in this microcosm, not understanding there's a macrocosm or a great world that's right outside of the United States of America. And then also, just a disclaimer for those who may tune in, the records that I'm going to show this evening are not going to be Moorish American authors. I know, shocker, right? Won't be Moorish American authors. It's not a slight against any Moorish American authors because we have something special coming up pretty soon as it pertains to Moorish American authors. And we're not going to let the cat out the bag, so to speak, until we get to that point, because we know that, for whatever reason, social media, somebody sees an idea and a thought, and next thing you know, they jacking it, and they don't give credit where credit is due at times. So, not to gatekeep or hold anything, but myself as well as my co-host, um, we thought, in our best interest that, once we get closer to the date, which is very close, very soon, that we'll put that information out there and you'll see exactly what we have in store. With that being said, too, there's going to be a second part, and it may even be a live stream or maybe a recording. I haven't decided yet, where we are going to highlight, or I'm going to highlight Moorish American authors, specifically those Moorish American authors who I read diligently, and I have their books, and their books will be displayed. I will be giving honors where honors are due, um, and why these books, in my honest opinion, are some of the best books to have in your repertoire, in your arsenal, if you are new to the teachings of the Prophet Noble Dreali or Moorish. Of course, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, our authority, also known affectionately as the 101s, and even the Moorish literature. Even though I know some Moorish Americans, they have their own issues with it. However, the Moorish literature contains many of the writings in words of our prophet and founder, as well as the divine constitution and bylaws. And then, specifically from where I sit and, the house which I'm under, the great book of the resurrection, which I also think that all Moorish Americans, whatever your, stance on the matter is, you should have a copy of the great book of the resurrection, the truth be yourself and not somebody else, authored by Grand Sheik, Supreme Grand Resurrection, Supreme Grand Sheik Timothy Golden Dingle Lil, a hyphenated Noble Dreali in his era of time. And I say that based off of just, my experience and also my background in the Moorish movement. The record has been great. So without further ado, let's get into these 7 records. So the first record that I would preview, like to preview and pull up, is the religious instruction of the Negroes in the United States. And I have the record right here. So all the records I'll show you on my screen as well. This record, as you can see, it is a reprint from classic reprint series. And this record is from a minister by the name of Charles Colac Jones. And when you open up the record, you'll find that it comes from forgottenbooks.com. But this book is important. This is a very important record, and you definitely want to get it in. If you don't have it, you want to have it in your arsenal, because the book pretty much outlines how Christianity, and I'm not speaking radical, the Prophet Noble Dreali teaches us that we do not speak radical against the church or any organized group. However, it teaches us and shows us how the institution of Christianity was forced upon our foremothers and forefathers on these shores here in the United States of America. That's just the truth. And Charles Colac Jones himself, again, he was a European minister. He showed how many of the various different denominations of the Christian church, they were able to, I don't want to say indoctrinate, but orientate and indoctrinate, just being perfectly honest, Asiatic, so-called Negro, Black, and colored individuals into becoming ministers. And another important part of the book, when you read it, it shows how, and again, many people, they have an issue with oral teaching. However, specifically in the branch that I come, not branch, but the strand of, or the I could say the branch, because this is a tree. For me, analogy wise, the MST of A, the Moorish Science Temple of America, is a tree, right? We have oral teachings from our elders who teach a specific lesson as to how the children were taken by those individuals who were slaveholders, etc., from their parents, and they were raised up among those individuals, and they ultimately wiped off the first generation of individuals who knew who they were, who were not subjected to mental slavery, but physical slavery. And likewise, the following generations, the subsequent generations, they actually suffered physical and mental slavery. And in this record right here, that this record, The Religious Instructions of the Negroes by Charles Colette Jones, he explicitly states, and I let me see, I don't want to belabor the point, but there's a portion in this record, the latter part of the record, where he not only teaches of the indoctrination of doctrines and duties of Christian ministers, but he also explains and expounds on how the children were taken from their parents and the values that were put in them were usurped, and they attempted to usurp the values that were given to the children from their parents, and they replaced it with their quote unquote um, values, moral teaching, etc., what they considered moral teachings. And then another part in the record, I believe it's in chapter 3, called Charles Colette Jones. He also outlines how there was a discrepancy between the Asiatics at that time and these ministers, because these ministers were attempting to convert Muslims, and it's on page 125. They were attempting to convert these Muslims into the Christian, paradigm, etc. And what the Muslims did instead, they were educating these Christian ministers, and they said, "Look, you know, we understand that you're preaching your specific gospel, what you're accustomed to in Christianity. However, in Islam, Allah is God. Allah is the supreme being. Allah is the causeless cause." And I'm paraphrasing. And then they went on to say what I found very interesting when you read this record is they said that Jesus, the Christ, was in fact Muhammad. And they said that the religion is the same ultimately, but different countries have different names. And again, this is a primary source document, so this isn't secondary. This isn't something that was cooked up by a would-be scholar, whatever the case may be. This is a primary source document. And just giving you a little bit of background about myself, my wife often jokes with me about our reading, like our differences in reading. My wife, she loves literature. She loves literature. She loves novels and things of that nature. Me, on the other hand, I can read a few, but I'm a historian. I went to school. I went to undergrad for history. I earned my BA in history, and I went on to earn my Master's of Education in Educational Administration. So my the way I see things in the scope and what appeals to me is history, concrete facts, evidence, and things in dates and facts and in timelines and chronology and things of that nature. Sounds a little nerdy. I don't really care, but these are the things that appeal to me. And I had this record for quite some time now. But ultimately, I would say, anybody who has any questions in regards to um, what was actually happening and occurring during the 18th century in this country, as well as the other parts of North America, the Caribbean specifically. This is a record that you would like to have, or you should have, or consider having in your repertoire. And I'm not endorsing any of these records. I'm just saying these are the records that I think are equally important. All right, let's go to the next record. So the next record I have, it looks pretty beat up, but that's because it's an older version, older copy. And of course, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we teach that we not even teach, but we place emphasis that our people, specifically those with a medium, light, and dark olive hue, are not black. However, the name of this record is the Black Jacobins, and it's a very important record because it talks specifically about the Great Toussaint L'Ouverture and the San Domingo Revolution, which is the Haitian Revolution. It was created by an elder brother, may Allah be pleased. His name is C.L.R. James. He was a Trinidadian historian, statesman, etc. And this record is a great book because it goes through and it shows you specifically how Toussaint L'Ouverture, the Salians, and all those individuals who were pivotal and crucial during that time, how they were able to change the course of history and ultimately create a domino effect that impacted the United States of America as well. I often say that if it wasn't for the Haitian Revolution, you wouldn't see events like the Louisiana Purchase. You probably wouldn't even see the event of the Civil War, even though we know Allah is the best of planners and we know that certain events are inevitable. When you look at this record right here, this is a very important record to have in your arsenal. Now, if you try to find it in this specific form, it may appear a little different because again, this copy right here. Let me see what the copyright date on this one is. But the copyright date is 1963. Actually, the original copyright date is 43, and then you have the 63 copy. So this is a 1963 copy of this record. But then also, at that time, you talking about the 1940s and 1960s, this was unheard of to write a record and actually have it not only published, but as an authority highlighting the history and the importance of Asiatics, my apologies, individuals who are Haitian, but also individuals who are of Moorish descent. Uh, Not only the milestones that they created, but the fact that they got the individuals who were oppressing them off their backs. And then you also see in this record too, you see the relation between various different Asiatic groups. And you also see the matter of European psychology being demonstrated as well, because you had those individuals who were considered quote unquote mulatto or fair skin, etc. Those individuals, they wanted to split and create their own separate group. Then you had Toussaint Louverture and his specific group. Then you had the individuals who were the landowners in France, not France, excuse me, in Haiti as well. But then likewise, over in France, there was a whole different revolution happening. So, as I stated before, this record right here, as a historian, The Black Jacobin, C.L.R. James, it's a great book. It's a vintage book. If you look for it, you may find it in a different cover, but I would definitely press upon the minds of those who really they want to deep dive or delve into, just what was happening during that time. And the beautiful thing about it is C.L.R. James himself, he wasn't there at that time. However, because there are so many historical pieces of evidence that he was able to find just as an historian, he was able to create this great record right here. So again, Jacobins, and that is by C.L.R. James. All right, let's go on and let's shift it a little bit. So, as I mentioned before, and you might have seen this in the preview on YouTube, we're going to get into some topics that are a little different. And this is part of the reason why I'm not going to say don't, but I am speaking freely and independently. I'm not a proponent of masking or hiding any specific information, especially information that I think that is for the benefit of everyone. We need to be in the know exactly of what's happening and what's going on and how certain systems and things like that are established and set up. So this record right here is by a European gentleman by the name of Curl Quigley, and the name of this record is The Anglo-American Establishment. Had it for a while. So all in all, when you look at this record right here, this record lays out specific secret networks that were established by Cecil Rhodes. And you may have heard of Cecil Rhodes with the so-called Rhodes Scholars, etc. Those individuals who were sent to really do the bidding of those individuals who sit in high places, right? So the purpose of this record right here was to preserve what the purpose of, let me slow down. The Cecil Rhodes Foundation or establishment was to establish and also to preserve and expand the British Empire at that time. Anytime you see the American flag like this, you usually see it in distress, right? And through this, you have various different groups that are created, and Curl Quigley, he sheds light on some of those groups. Some of those groups include Cecil Rhodes' Secret Society. Another group is known as the Milner Group. And until this very day, as you may have seen through social media, you may have seen through sound bites and even news media, for those who still rely on what we call quote unquote legacy news media. I myself personally, I can't stand legacy news media. I can't stomach it. If I do preview it, I'm trying to see what lies or half truths that they're speaking, so that I can go behind them and actually do my due diligence of research and find and see what names and groups and people who are really working behind the scenes, and that requires some deep digging. But many of these groups, until this day, they still hold real big positions of power in education, bankers, financiers, as well as government entities. And then you also, like I stated earlier, you see the creation of the Rhodes Scholars. And then also when you're dealing with Cecil Rhodes, likewise, who's mentioned heavily in this record, he was one of the individuals who fought heavily against the brothers and sisters in South Africa, and actually was one of the individuals who was instrumental in apartheid, which is comparable to many of the things that our grandparents and great grandparents they faced from the 1860s up until this point, where they call it Jim Crow, or as a Prophet Noble Drew says, Jim Crowism, right? Then another group that's a little less known in this record too is the Milner Group, which was created by a guy by the name of, and I say this, quote unquote, Lord Alfred Milner. And this group, they established what was called the Round Table. And this group, to this day, again, because these groups haven't gone anywhere. Most people, unless you do a deep dive, you may or may not be aware of them. But these groups hold significant global influence and power over global institutions, and likewise foreign policy. So when you see foreign policy being created, and when you see certain things happening, like what has been coming down the pipeline as of lately with this country as well as other countries, both quote unquote this country's allies and adversaries, you find that many of these global institutions are behind the scenes, working behind the strings. And I just wanted to point that out. And then also this book, it brought to light, for me personally, a entity called the CFR, which is the Council of Foreign Relations. And one person in particular, who may continue to rest peacefully, by the name of Brother Steve Coakley. Long before my time, his clips and videos on YouTube, but he spoke heavily on the CFR, which is the Council of Foreign Relations, and the fact of the some of the things that they were doing in regards to some of the dastardly deeds that they were doing. And I'll say that, but again, the Anglo-American establishment, very good record to get. It is not only historical, but it also deals with many other things that we see happening right now in the present day. All right, the next record. Next record I'm pulling up is Manufacturing Consent. And as you can notice, for me, I again like to get into some extensive reading. And I'm not going to say extensive, but some outside of the lane sometimes, right? Excuse me. So Manufacturing Consent is a little different in the sense that this record was created by, or it was authored by Edward S. Herman, and then you also have Noam Chomsky. Now, I'm not really a big proponent of Noam Chomsky, and even more so now with everything that's coming out in regards to this individual. However, I'm not going to sit there and deny the work that they put into this record, teaching how, or just showing and illustrating how the political economy and the mass media is used at times to filter specific information to the people. And it ultimately, in this record right here, it shows how the mass media is used to, the mass media is a tool that is used to create specific ideas and a specific narrative so that the masses of people go along with it. It touches on some of the wars that this country has been a part of. It touches on some of the legacy media, as I mentioned earlier, and how some of them aren't even in existence anymore. It's just, how long ago this was put out. It was put out in the early 2000s, but it goes in depth as to how the mass media has been used. And when I say mass, I'm talking social, I'm talking at one point in time, the newspapers, which are kind of obsolete now, and then also, um, the media that we see on the television or on our computers, etc. How they intentionally orchestrate and create narratives for the people to not question what's happening. So when you look at this record right here, it goes into the World Trade Organization, it goes into the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, some of the issues that went on specifically with the Gulf War. It also talks heavily on the big five uh, media outlets. I think one may have been, well, actually two now, because one of them was actually brought out not too long ago. Not even not too long ago, like a week or two ago. I think they may be in. Excuse me, everyone. They may be in talks of buying one of them out. But how film, music, etc. You know, advertisements and uh, certain uh, imaging, things that you see, is intentionally put out there to program your mind to think a certain way and not question, where these thoughts coming from or what is missing from the overall message, or uh, why are we in a position where, or how do we determine what is worthy or unworthy of um, legitimizing reasons to do certain things as it pertains to countries, nations, um, etc. So, manufacturing consent is another record that I would put out there. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't, hey, it's all good. We ain't tripping off of it. All right, this one right here may be a little touchy, but it's very important. Many people may have already seen it, but it's the Israel lobby. And again, another U.S. foreign policy book. Book right here was created by John. I know I'm gonna butcher his name. My apologies. John J. Mershmer and Stephen M. Waltz. The book ultimately shows how you have specific political action committees. One being APAC, the other one being Zionist um, groups who work collectively and openly to undermine and align themselves with U.S. policy to push their own personal interests. That's not something that is, how can I say it? That's not something that's hitting right now. We can see it. We know what's happening, and this is part of the political stage that we see happening here in the United States. And one thing I found interesting when I read it was the fact that not regardless of what you say, but when you look at the situation, their lobby actually functions as if it's a U.S. entity, and it has a lot to do with the fact that many of the individuals who sit in that lobby have dual citizenship. Um, and what they do ultimately, they influence the lobby, or the lobby influences our legislative and executive branch here in the United States of America to push specific agendas and roles and specific narratives again to make things acceptable or deemed appropriate, right? And then also the lobby also screens political candidates is something else I found out. So, and I'm not saying all political candidates, but many of the, not many, I don't say that because that would be putting everyone in a box. But some candidates, I'm gonna say some political candidates, they screen them to see if their interests align with their interests, and they also look at individuals who may speak harshly or radical against what people know as the state of Israel, right? And that uh, that record, or the record that's being displayed right here, is a very important record, and it allows you to really look at and delve into how political action committees work, how specific religious institutions align themselves with these political action committees, and how they get things done. Many people, and I'm gonna say many now, many people have no idea of the inner workings of uh, national, international, state, and even to a lesser degree local government, Some people think it's just a matter of just putting your name on or filling out, your form and getting your name on the ballot. It's so much more to that. And when you start to really peel back the layers and see who's actually working behind the scene, like the great movie The Wiz or The Wizard of Oz, whichever one you're familiar with, you start seeing that the rabbit hole is much deeper, and it's not only money that influences American politics, state politics, local politics, but it's also train of thought. It's also political action committees for sure, and then also it's policy. You know, even on your local level, foreign policy impacts local policy. It impacts state policy. It impacts, of course, it impacts federal policy. But these are the things that I just wanted to, shed and bring to light as it pertains to this record right here that's displayed. You decide your honest opinion on it. I have my thoughts and my opinions about it, but I'll save that for a later show. If you want to know my thoughts and opinions on it, we can go into it. But let's move forward. Next record. Where did I put that one? Right here. Cool. Again, a little beat up. I actually got this record when I was a school teacher. I'm an administrator now, but I got it when I was a school teacher at my second school. The school that I was working at was closing, and as a result, they say, "Hey, we throwing these books out," because that's what they do. Unfortunately, they throw them out, donate some, etc. They say, join the L. You can go through these books, and if you see any books that pique your interest, you can, you can, if they're yours. So of course you have to write your name, quality, etc. Did it the right way. But the book is from Plantation to Ghetto. This is the third edition. But looking for the first or second edition because when you see different editions of books, something may be omitted, something may be revised, something may be taken out. And when you're doing primary source deep delving, you want to get that. You want to get your hands on that first edition if you can. It may cost you a pretty penny, which I've learned over the years. Nevertheless, it's valuable if you can get your hands on the first or second edition record. But third edition is good too. So this book is from August Meir and Elliot Ruddick. Record right here is very interesting. Now, some of the things in this record I agree with, others I don't. And it doesn't necessarily have any. Well, I'm not going to say that. It has a profound. Much of what I don't agree with has to do with my own personal research, what I've learned from the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, his teachings in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and being able to do what we call the litmus test. I think that in certain aspects in this country as it pertains to Asiatics, we've been given a narrative as to how we arrived in this country, our status in this country, as well as, and I'm talking about at that time up until this day, as well as our contributions. I'm gonna say that much, right? And part of the reason, also, given based on what I've learned from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, but also my own personal family history, I've learned that some of the things, not some, I would say maybe about 60 to 70% of the things that I've learned, maybe even more than that now I think about it, that I've learned in public schooling, secondary education, post-secondary, etc. A lot of that stuff has been proven to be not true or inaccurate or off a hair to, or someone trying to push a specific narrative. But nevertheless, this record right here from Plantation to Ghetto, it outlines how Asiatic people in this country found themselves in a specific situation and predicament, which is the advent of slavery. But it didn't start with slavery. Right here, it talks about West African heritage and so-called, I'm going to say so-called, because this is what it says, this is old record, so-called Afro-American history. Now, the reason why I say so-called because when you're dealing with that term Afro-American, first and foremost, there's no such person as a so-called Afro-American, African American, Black American, Negro American, etc. That name changes, as you can see, as I just mentioned and demonstrated. Those specific labels change over a course of time, and when you're dealing with people of a specific nationality, their names never change. A person who's an Italian American is an Italian American. A person, and I'm saying they may be of Italian descent, not saying that they may not have other nationalities in them or part of them, but they may appeal to be an Italian American, an Irish American, a Senegalese American, Nigerian American, uh, etc., 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 Chinese American. You get where I'm going with this, right? And when you look at from plantation to ghetto, it talks about one beautiful thing. It talks about is the agrarian America, meaning the agricultural aspect of America, speaking specifically to not only the plantation system or the so-called slave system, etc., but the fact that many of our people were agriculturalists by nature. And what you find now with this new wave or this new generation, myself being a millennial, you have individuals who are Gen Z, and then you even have individuals who are a little bit older than me. I believe I can't think. I think the Generation X or whatever. I don't. Um, we're getting back to that. We're getting back to that aspect of agriculture because really that's what's going to help us all in all. But as you continue to go through the record or go through the book, it starts talking about how Reconstruction, or what was supposed to be Reconstruction after the Civil War, it was really a farce. And what they say is it's a dream that was portrayed. And that goes in line with what we find in Act 6 on our divine constitution and bylaws. The fact of the matter is that Negro, Black, and Colored was supposed to be declared out, or should have been declared out in 1865. However, it wasn't declared out. And when you continue to go through it, you start looking at not only a dream being portrayed, but you start seeing what's called the so-called, well, not the so-called, but the Great Migration. And the fact that many of our grandparents and great-grandparents, they migrated to these inner cities. I live in Baltimore. You have cities like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New York City, so on and so forth. Washington, D.C., can't forget about my brothers and sisters down in D.C. But all in all, they find themselves attempting to migrate for various different reasons. One reason in particular is employment and a better life, not necessarily meaning that, and we know about the atrocity that took place in the Deep South and in the South in general, but it was, people migrate, as we can see, happening today. But I like the fact that it places great emphasis, on the fact that you had individuals who stayed in that agrarian South, and then individuals who moved to the industrial North. And with that, you find these different communities that spring up, right? And out of these communities, you see not what you have here today, but you find a sense of togetherness and things of that nature. Unfortunately, it goes on to, when it talks about the 1960s, and et cetera, it goes to show explicitly how individuals who were considered, in most cases, leaders, they actually dropped the ball. And it doesn't outline explicitly, but it also shows how, when you're dealing with the Civil Rights Act, it really wasn't for the benefit of our people, but in fact, it was more so of a pacification act. And the act itself really has led to what we find happening here today in places like Baltimore and other cities as well, where you have a lack of community. Because when you look at the word community, community ultimately means the common unity of a people. And as a result of that, those organizations who were perceived as successful, they haven't been successful, just leveling off with you. And some of them still exist today, but I'm not going to say those organizations. But if you those organizations, the so-called Negro, Black, and Colored organizations, they show examples, or they think they have what is success, but in all actuality, you know, they're happy with crumbs and pacification. And as a result of that, this is why many of our people find, not even many of our people, but our communities or our neighborhoods. I'm gonna say neighborhoods. They find themselves in the conditions that they are today because of that. So that record right there, again, the record I had right here is from Plantation to Ghetto, and you know the title sounds a little harsh, but all in all, it's a good read. It's a good read. Some historical points in it. The next record, very near and dear. This book record right here is from Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's called Images of Cuba. May be very hard to find. Give you a little backdrop on this record. My wife and I had the opportunity to go, not to go, but to visit Havana, Cuba, and Matanzas and a few other cities back in 2023. We decided to go to Cuba. Parents were stressing. Oh man, you going to Cuba, this and the third. Me, my people were in Cuba. I speak English, know a little bit of Spanish, not too much, brushing up on it. But nevertheless, those are my brothers and sisters. And when we went down to Cuba, we went to Havana, it was all love. We got love. Brothers and sisters coming up to me, coming up to my wife, speaking Spanish, etc. Me knowing a little, not even a lot, lost in translation, but enjoying just the overall experience of immersing myself and seeing nothing but Asiatics. And I've seen individuals too of different races and nationalities, but just watching that blend of culture with everybody. And it's not based solely on that. You come out of this country and you find that, again, that macrocosm and that microcosm, you come out of this country and you find that brothers and sisters who are living with very little means, and being from West Baltimore, I've grown up with at times with very little means, and I've seen and experienced, firsthand my peers, counterparts, etc. in the neighborhoods we grew up in with very little means. But to see, the very little means that our brothers and sisters are working with down there, and to see the resiliency is quite beautiful. But went into a bookstore, because I know a bookstore when I see a bookstore, went into the bookstore with my wife, and the brothers and sisters that were ice grilling because they were looking like, why they in this bookstore, right? So I'm looking around, I say, you know what? I want a few records. Got that, and got this record and two other records. Images of Cuba is a good record. I'm gonna tell you why. Many people may know of your story and etc. I'm not. If you're just a person who loves history, Cuba had a very very prominent role in on the continent of Africa, specifically in Angola, and helping the brothers and sisters over there to relieve themselves of their oppressors and those individuals who were colonizers, imperialists, etc. And in this record right here, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, he outlines specifically Cuba's role in Africa. The fact that that little island known as Cuba, that I call and many people call Little Africa, they sent troops over there, and not only sent troops over there, but they sent troops over there to aid Angola, but then also to go and help South Africa likewise. And then you also see them assisting Nambia. You see them assisting other various different groups on the continent to bring down apartheid and to bring down that regime that was in Pretoria in South Africa. And it talks about how, formal education, simple manners, things of that nature were not only a staple of the president at that time was President Castro, but it also provides a little insight. Me being, again, a Moorish American, learning about the Cuban Revolution in school, hearing about the U.S. blockade in school, then teaching it to my students when I was educated, etc., that occurred in it's 1962, but getting a different perspective as to what their perception of the situation is. See, it's always good to learn about both sides of the coin, so to speak, the proverbial coin, because, again, going back to the record Manufacturing Consent, you see things from a specific light based on the person or the individual, the entity that is giving you that perception. but it's always a good thing to get the perception of those who are on the other side of the spectrum, so to speak, so you can weigh out, okay, was this justified or was this unjustified? And then also to see some of the contributions that many individuals like yourself or individuals who may have come from dire straits, etc., they made not only on their own homeland or country, but also globally. So I just want to, again, images of Cuba may be very difficult. Excuse me, I went earlier, talking too much, I ain't got my water. Sorry about that. Went earlier to see if the record was even available online, but it's out of print. But you may be able to find a PDF copy. You may be able to find a copy. Do some deep digging. If you know somebody down there, if you even get a chance to go to Cuba, excuse me, get the record. All right. I'm good, man. I'm good. All right. And then, oh yeah, I skipped one. Sorry about that. Now, this one may seem a little different, but this record right here, did I have it? Maybe I left it over there. I'll speak to it. No problem. Yeah, I left it over there. It's cool. It's called Budgeting 101, a crash course of budgeting. Getting out of debt, tracking expenses, building financial goals, and building your savings, right? Very important. We can know as much as we want to know. We can know about the moon, stars, and the quasars, not trying to be funny. We can know what happened in, 1762. We can know what happened in 1924. We can learn about 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. We can also know about what happened in the 60s, the 70s, up until the age when I was born, and even yesterday. But if we don't know, and I'm saying specifically for myself, for a while I had this record, and I utilized this record in my daily life. Not necessarily, everybody has debt. And some people say, oh, this is good debt, this is bad debt, etc. Homeowner, etc. Who knows who calls it, right? Automobile, etc. Who knows who calls it, right? But when it comes to tracking your expenses, I have a family. It's myself, my wife, and our children. I have to be, and I've learned over the course of time, coming from being a young man to being an older man, and I'm 36, and eventually becoming an older man, that you have to track your expenses. You have to set goals for yourself. You have to set legitimate goals. You have to set tangible goals. You got to set financial goals. You want to put yourself in the best situation where you can be a benefit to your family, to your loved ones, and not be a hindrance, and not have them have to go through some of the very things that you had to go through. Specifically for me, I was raised by my mom, no dad, just being perfectly honest with you, whatever the case may be. And I had to learn specific things as I came up in Baltimore. I had to learn quick on my toes. And I'm not the most polished individual, as you can see. However, I'm a long shot away from the person who I once was. And I'm also a long shot away from the environment that I come from. Doesn't mean that I forgot about my environment. I'm still in my environment to a degree. I go back to to be honest with you, it's right on the other side of town, but still go to my own neighborhood, etc. But these are the things they weren't teaching us in school. And I say all that to say this. They weren't teaching us about budgeting, tracking expenses, saving, planning, purchasing a home, purchasing your first automobile, how to put away money for a rainy day fund, and all different types of how to fund your education, your child's or children's education. And I'm not just talking about college education, because we're in a time now where people need trades, or even if a person wants to go into the entrepreneurial lane, you gotta know how to do these things. So this record right here is very important, or has been very important for me. It has helped me, and it's a very small record. It's not a read, so to speak, but it's a record that you can go through and you can find gems, and those gems may add a little bit more onto your life. And these records right here that I mentioned are supplemental records. you know. But these records also, they've helped me in the sense as being a Moorish American, as being a Muslim, which I am a Muslim. They've helped me in certain aspects of my life to understand the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drali a little bit better, and to also understand the historical timelines that we find as well. So, again, crash course of budgeting, budgeting 101, by Michelle Kagan, who was a CPA. That record right there is a good record all in all. Now, I shared seven. I know they aren't the seven that I posted, but I do have other records. I have some that I would say are honorable mentions. And those honorable mentions are records that I'm going to just show and let you see. I'm not going to go in depth. I'm not going to go and say, oh, this is what this record is and this one is this one is. But one record that's helped me tremendously. I was an avid running before they started tearing up Druid Hill or Druid Park Lake. And I'm getting back to the running aspect. I don't really like Montebello. And at one point in time, um, was running, getting back to it. The Yogi Science of Breath helped me out tremendously during that time by Yogi Ramachakra. Great record to have. Teaches you the science of breathing, the fact that when we come out of our of the wombs of our mothers, we actually breathe in a specific manner, and then we learn an unintelligible way of breathing, and as a result of that, our breathing or the way we breathe, and not even that's not even the right way, honestly, but and release, it actually can expand our life, and by breathing through your mouth, um, it can actually create germs and pollutants and things of that nature as well. Let's see. What other records? Another good record to have. Endorse it, stamp it, is Marcus Garvey's Message to the People. Great record to have. It's actually for the UNIA, the leaders the members and leaders of the UNIA. And many of the lessons you find that the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Aurelius Garvey, he taught his followers, they parallel off with the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He is the forerunner of the Prophet. And this record right here should be somewhere in your library. I'm going through it tonight, man. It's all good. All right. It's two records, right? I said two for one. These two records, to me, information is pretty much the same. You should either have one or the other or both. Servants of Allah, African Muslims in Antebellum South, specific narratives about key Asiatic figures who came from the continent of Africa, allegedly. And not even allegedly, they give their own narrative. I don't want to put allegedly on that, that's disingenuous. But get the records, because what you'll find is Islam has been in this country for a very long time. And you find that the spirit that many of our forefathers and foremothers had as it pertained to Allah, as it pertained to staying on the path, as it pertains to not deviating regardless of whatever circumstances you may find yourself in, you'll find that, that was the focal point, and that was what was ingrained in them. Some individuals had to adjust because of the society they lived in. Nevertheless, they didn't lose, but they maintained, and they either max, or they even continue to follow the course of where they were in their walk with Allah. So, I just want to put that out there. Again, Service of Allah, African Muslim and Antebellum South. This record right here is my personal record. For anyone may not know, I am a level 1 Reiki practitioner. I'm currently working on my level 2. This is Self-Healing with Reiki by Penelope Quest. Great record. Teaches you how to create wholeness, harmony, spirit, balance, and tranquility within your mind and your spirit, and in your body as well. How to heal yourself, and once you continue to move forward and elevate, how to heal others too, without actually laying physical hands on them, or in some cases you may actually be able to, but getting rid of those ailments and things of that nature. This is for those who may be interested in reading about it. But like I said, I would go to a dedicated and certified and reputable Reiki practitioner if you want to learn. I'm only a level one. Another old book, as you can see, 80s from the 80s. You know that 80s teal, right? Training the body to cure itself. How to exercise, how to use exercise to heal. Great record right here. Plenty of calisthenics in it. How to tranquilize stress. How to banish back pain, arthritis, cut cholesterol, etc. Lower your blood pressure and other health problems as well. As Asiatic people, specifically people of Moorish descent, we go into certain places and for whatever reason, some people try to self-diagnose. Others, they say all these things run in the family. I beg to differ. Some things may run in your family, but ultimately it's not. It's a choice of behavior, pattern, action, etc. that you can change and you can alternate. And the beautiful thing about this is some of the exercises that you find in this record, all you need is a chair, all you need is a stool. Sometimes all you need is a mat. But you can literally find ways to heal yourself. Physician, heal thyself. So that's training the body to cure itself, right? And then, do I want to go into that other one? Let me see. I don't even think I have it on. Well, no, I ain't gonna go to that one because that one is, it's subtle. But this one right here is the power of healing. The powers of healing is a great record. Powers of healing, mystery of the unknown. Again, going into various different healing arts. That's my niche. That's what I love. I love the healing arts, as you may know or may not know. There's another book called The Polarity Process that I've been, getting into as well. But I take my time. I'm taking things one step at a time. I'm not a type of person I want to grab and gravitate towards everything. But this book right here, just want to read a few points on it right here. It just goes into, and it's from the 80s. It talks about how you have specific things that actually have been used and utilized around the world to heal. And it's quite fascinating. It talks about crystal consciousness. It talks about specific auras. It talks about color patterns, etc. It's another record that I have too called The Wonder of Colors that kind of supplements this as well. It goes into vibrational energies. It talks a little bit about, what was known at that time as the computer age, but how they were using computers to look into and peer into the body's secrets and things of that nature. But all in all, it talks about how you can meditate your illnesses away. It talks about yoga. And also it talks about different, what's the word? I'm looking for the word. The psychology of the Ayurvedic system, all in all. So again, just wanted to share, put it out there. Mysteries of the Unknown, Powers of Healing, great record to have. And, with that being said, I think that I may have said too much. I may have said a lot. I may not have said enough. If you have any records that you would like to suggest or you would like to add into the comment section once you preview this video, please feel free to do so. We always are looking for positive comments, positive uplifting comments. I am in the process of creating a additional channel as well, and that channel is going to be geared towards more of what I like to delve into, which is current events. I like politics to a degree. The healing arts, as well as herbal quick cures as well. I'm actually in the process, not even the process, I'm currently taking a class and I am working towards becoming a horticulturalist. So I'll be finished that. My mind's jumping time. My apologies. I will be finished that course and getting my certification in it in March, late March. So I'll keep everyone updated. As to the progress I'm making. I actually have a few assignments due too, so I should be working on those assignments that run in my mouth. But that's the purpose of this channel. The Moorish Sense Channel was dedicated not only to um, focus on one specific trend of thought, but to begin to open up, to blossom and bloom. And as I stated before, the next segment that I will put out will be dedicated towards books that are, Moorish American books, Moorish American authors, who, in my honest opinion, these are the books that you should have in your repertoire. It's not to slight anyone. It's just that these are the books that are on my library shelf, and if I don't have your book, hit me up, holla at me, let me know what's join the L. This is what the book is. And you don't have to do that. Just shoot me the book, whatever the case may be, in Moorish Sense Media, or I'll investigate it and I'll look and see what the book is all about. But I have a specific train of thought that I follow when when I when I do my reading. So with that being said, I am going to say Islam and peace. And I'm also going to end off, which I should have started, and that was my apologies, with the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.